Hello and welcome to this week's belated edition of the Hot Tag Show, only on Gwek.net, the best place to get your bi-weekly fix on wrestling news, views, questions and answers. Many apologies, first of all, for the delay in this week's show. Me and Adam had a couple of super busy weeks, so again, apologies, but we hope to get next week's show out to you on time. We're going to start off this week with some wrestling news. And first of all, Adam, we've got the amazing news that next year's WrestleMania has already been announced. This is WrestleMania 30, and it will take place in New Orleans.
Yes, WrestleMania 30. A press conference on Monday afternoon before Raw sealed the deal. It had been rumoured for a week or two that it would be in New Orleans. Of course, it's confirmed Monday, and many stars came out to announce it, as well as Vince McMahon, and The Rock has committed to WrestleMania 30. So it looks like he's gonna be wrestling in WWE, for some time more than just this year's WrestleMania, or beyond this year's WrestleMania. Also, the logo has been unveiled, which we'll be seeing a lot more of next year. This time next year, of course, when the road to WrestleMania 30 begins.
Absolutely, and that will be on April the 6th, 2014. WWE superstar Jack Swagger was in the news this week, unfortunately for all the wrong reasons. He was arrested for marijuana possession under a DUI, so unfortunately we're going to have a question on that later, Alan, but not very good news, is it, for Jack Swagger after his recent push?
No, the biggest, pretty much the biggest push of his WWE career yet. He's got a World Heavyweight Championship opportunity at WrestleMania 30 on the 29 on the horizon. And, we're going to have to see what happens with that.
Absolutely. We'll answer a question on that later. Big news this week. The WWE title belt has been reintroduced. This was displayed by The Rock. If you haven't seen it yet, you can go onto www.com or on Facebook. It's all over the place at the moment. I've got to be honest, I'm not particularly overly impressed by this new offering. What do you think?
I'm glad the spinner has gone, because I was never a fan of that title in the slightest. Sort of just got used to it over the years, but it's good to see something different and something that looks, appearance-wise looks actually more prestigious. But I don't know, I think, some parts of it look good, some parts of it don't look very good. I think there's, it looks a bit plain.
Yeah, but like you say, at least the spinning title's gone now, so that's a plus side. Good news for video game fans this week, as WWE have agreed a deal with 2K Inc. over the future of their wrestling titles. We alluded to you a few weeks ago that THQ had gone bankrupt and the future of their wrestling games was up in the air, although we were sure that someone would take the titles over. This has now been officially announced, Adam, and so everyone can look forward to wrestling titles come this Christmas.
Yes, WWE reaching a deal with 2K Games. The deal was basically shepherded by THQ, who put the deal together so that some of their debts to WWE would be wiped away. So now THQ has absolutely nothing to do with WWE. 2K Games is going to be working with Ukes, like THQ, and the developmental team at THQ, who were working on the WWE games, are now employed by Take-Two. So there's going to be, I don't think, no dramatic changes in how the games are. It's still the same team working on them, and of course there's going to be new members. But the WWE 14 is still going to be coming out towards the end of this year. However, it's going to be rebranded as WWE 2K14. Obviously a reference to the 2K games. So WWE 14 is coming out this year, and I have to see what happens from there on.
In lighter news this week, Scott Hall has now entered DDP's accountability crib, so he'll be working alongside DDP and Jake the Snake Roberts. Just want to say, actually, I saw a video with Jake the Snake Roberts this week, doing his sort of weekly blog, I suppose, on the accountability crib, and Jake Roberts was looking really, really well. He had some really good colour in his cheek. He's looking like he put a bit of weight in the face and looked really well at him, didn't he?
Yeah, building towards his retirement tour. I believe that starts in April. He's going to be wrestling again. So yeah, best of luck.
Definitely, and also if DDP should take some real credit, because Jake the Snake Roberts has always had these problems and demons over the years, but it looks like he's on the mend now. So Scott Hall, hopefully DDP can do the same with Scott Hall. Right, time for this week's mailbag. We've got 4 excellent questions for you this week. The first one, this is from Craig Simmons of Kissimmee, Florida. Thank you, Craig, for your question. Right, this is obviously a very recent question we've had sent in the last 24 hours, and it's regarding Jack Swagger. And he says, after Jack Swagger's arrest, should the WWE throw the book at him and take his title shot away from him at WrestleMania? Well, it's a very good question, Craig. It's a difficult one for the WWE because he has already been announced to face Alberto Del Rio for the heavyweight title at WrestleMania 29. So in that way, if you take him off the title and the card, you're sort of screwing the fans, which the WWE always try and keep away from. I think that obviously he'll, whether he gets suspended or not, I'm sure he'll get a heavy fine because he's bringing the company into disrepute. The thing with Jack Swagger, he has been given this big push, and now he's with Dutch Mantel as his mouthpiece. But I'm not a fan of Jack Swagger and the wrestling style, the wrestling way. I must admit, I'm not really overly impressed with him, and I think this big comeback of his is, I'm not a fan of his. But I think that he'll just take a punishment, maybe a small suspension, maybe. In fact, actually, I don't think they'll suspend him because I think it's too close to WrestleMania, and they need to build that up now. So I think he'll probably just get a fine, and that'll probably be about it, really. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, it's certainly a difficult situation. I mean, I'm not sure what they're going to do. I mean, he hasn't failed the wellness policy in the sense that he hasn't failed the test, but of course he was found in possession of the drug, which is something that I'm not sure if that's actually happened apart from with Rob Van Dam going back to 2006 when he was stripped of he won the WWE title and the ECW Championship. He had both titles and was stripped of them a couple of days after he was arrested along with Sabu, and he was then suspended for 30 days, and that was for possession.
So a similar thing to Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Iron Cheek, wasn't it, all those years ago when they were found together, weren't they, smoking marijuana in their car, weren't they? But that wasn't just the fact that they were smoking illegal substances. It was also the fact that they were a babyface in the heel caught together in the same car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a slap in the face, isn't it, for the for Vince McMahon and the WWE, because they've taken this dare I say, really mid-card wrestler. Would you agree?
Yeah, at the moment, yeah. Of course, he did win the World Heavyweight Championship back in 2010 and had it for about 3 months. But since then, his career really was just on the decline, and especially, he's just come back from this 6-month sabbatical, pretty much, where they've had to repackage his character because he was pretty much a jobber in a year ago. Yeah, I look at him as more of a just a bigger version of sort of Kurt Angle, but not as good really, like a bland version of Kurt Angle. This the American hero, the amateur background, Mr. America, personality. The ankle lock.
The ankle lock, but he's no Kurt Angle, and I don't ever see him reaching dizzy heights. But for the fact that WWE have taken him and tried to push him, they put a legend in Dutch Mantel with him as well. It's really just a big slap in the face for the WWE.
Yes, certainly an interesting time, and I guess we can only see what happens. I mean, really, it's all up to WWE. I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, next question now. This is from Danny Hughes of Brighton in the United Kingdom. Not far from us, actually, just down the road. He says, it's been a while since the last spate of premature wrestling deaths. What has happened to reduce these tragedies? Well, I think you've got to look at a lot of different things here, Danny. First of all, you've got to look at there's more regular testing for drugs and steroids now. There's harsher penalties if you're caught with them. And I think generally maybe we're looking at so many wrestlers that recently died over this terrible spate we had, sort of from 2000 to 2007. The wrestlers, the older wrestlers have sort of passed away now, and we've got the younger, healthier wrestlers coming through. certainly the last major one, really high-profile one, was Chris Benoit, wasn't it? And we all know sort of the story behind that one. I think now the regular testing now, they can't get away from it. There's suspensions. It's all over the news now. It's all over Facebook. It's a good thing that they're stopped now. These tragedies have stopped. I think that hopefully we won't see this sort of thing happen again, actually. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, well, the industry is certainly, especially WWE, has certainly become much more stringent on things like drugs, of course, with the wellness policy. And, going back to Bruno Sammartino's Hall of Fame induction, one of the things that was, made him want to accept the deal that was offered was the fact that, the WWE had changed so much over the years, and its anti-drugs policy had improved so much, and they've been working with doctors who had worked with Bruno Sammartino and things like that. So the WWE has definitely done a lot to improve upon this. And unfortunately, in the cases of with drugs and stuff, looking at Jack Swagger, I mean, it's not like a I don't know, potentially life-threatening drug or whatever that he's obviously been dabbling in, but nevertheless, it's still possible to fall through the cracks in the policy. But on a whole, obviously, things have become much tighter and better regulated. And of course, that's the WWE, where they have the money to do so. And I think TNA has a similar approach, a similar kind of wellness policy. But then, you look on the independent circuit, where companies don't have the money to do such things, and it's really up to the performers. It's going to happen anyway, because it's not just that it's wrestling; it's just that it's just people's lives, and it does nothing to do with wrestling. It's the same with any sport, and pretty much anything, is that this stuff is going to happen no matter what, and you can only companies can only do what they can to make sure it doesn't. But exactly. Nevertheless, it's an inevitability.
Exactly. I mean, inevitability, in all sports, really. I mean, Honky Tonk Man actually said something very interesting once. He was saying about the independents that cannot afford the drug tests because it costs, they simply cannot afford to pay them. I don't know what they actually are per person, but the WWE can afford to have the tests. And certainly some of the major tests, the major drugs, WWE also has those sparingly because they are a lot of money. I mean, and they can use it as write-off with some of the money for tax, I suppose. But it goes to the old thing with drugs in sport. It isn't just wrestling; it's every sport. They always find drugs and cracks to get through. I don't want to say anything too liable here that I can get caught up on, but in the news recently has been the Blade Runner, Oscar Pistorius. Now, he's a living legend, an Olympic hero, Paralympic hero, and of course his tragedy with his chief in charge of the murder of his girlfriend on Valentine's Day, but they found steroids in his apartment. So just going to show you that no matter who you are, you're still susceptible to this world of drugs. Okay, next question here. This is from Lindy Sims in Monmouth, Wales, UK. And she says, what do you guys think of WWE's choice to host WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans? Many people would have chosen the spiritual home of MSG, obviously Madison Square Gardens. Good question, Lindy. We alluded to the fact earlier that we announced this on the show earlier. Yes, I think in many people's choices would have been MSG, as it is the spiritual home of WWE for all these years. But unfortunately, I think there's two ways. I mean, me and Adam don't like this venue anymore personally because of the way they've changed inside of it. It's not the same sort of venue. Also, it's quite a small capacity, and something like WrestleMania, where you can sell out 100,000 seated stadiums and arenas. What's MSG now? About 20,000?
Yeah, about that.
About that. So that, there's a lot of tickets you're not selling for a start. Also, it's in New Jersey, New York this year anyway. So I think that in many ways, yes, it would have been nice for the nostalgia reasons to have it in MSG next year. But I can understand why they haven't. Adam?
Yeah, I mean, the last few years, WrestleMania has been taking place at these massive stadiums, without rooftops and things like that. These huge venues that can hold 60 to 85,000 fans. So going to somewhere like the Superdome in New Orleans, which can, I believe, for a wrestling audience, can seat about 65,000. No doubt WWE will exaggerate the overall attendance when it comes to that event, probably by about 10,000. But nevertheless, it does make sense to go to a venue as big as that again, as they have been doing these last few years. In terms of Madison Square Garden, yes, it would be good for nostalgia reasons to come back to Madison Square Garden in New York City for the 30th show. Obviously, they were there last for WrestleMania, at WrestleMania 20, and then WrestleMania 10, the first WrestleMania. But as you said, I mean, okay, the venue is a lot smaller than these big stadiums. 20 to 25,000 people is what Madison Square Garden holds for a wrestling audience. And that would have been fine if perhaps the arena, prior, or the refurbishment at Madison Square Garden, where it actually looked different and it had this kind of aura about it when you're watching it on television. But since they redesigned it, I think it now just looks like any other arena. And I think that actually takes something away perhaps from WrestleMania, the whole spectacle of it. So, I'm happy with the choice of venue. And, I think it's going to, I do think all these big stadiums do add to the kind of value of spectacle that we have when we see WrestleManias.
Exactly. I mean, the only thing I would say about some of these big outdoor arenas they've had last year at WrestleMania is the fact that the seating arrangements. I mean, me and Adam watched it together last year, and we actually said that we're glad we weren't sort of behind where the entrance was, because all the huge WrestleMania sign and all these big palm trees there. And it was restricting the view. Now, those seats are not cheap, and really you could not see, you wouldn't have a clear view of the ring. So there's always pros and cons. But this next question here is from Grant Housey. There's no address here, but thank you anyway, Grant. WWE Studios is releasing the Marine Free shortly, and also Cruising for a Bruising. With lower ratings and storylines not being quite what they used to be, shouldn't the WWE be concentrating on entertaining us with the in-ring action rather than in the movie theatre? Yes, totally agree with you here, Grant, personally. If they can afford to pay these guys in Hollywood to write storylines and scripts for movies, they should really actually be concentrating on what we're not getting in the ring. The storylines haven't been anywhere as near as what they used to be, especially like during the Attitude Era. They should be concentrating on the wrestling side first and foremost. Then, when you've got a great product, then you can move on to the side shows and extra product, etc. But I don't think the WWE have really released any decent movies anyway, personally. What do you think, Adam?
Well, in terms of WWE Studios, I think it's completely fine, because it's a completely different, it's an operation which is totally separate from the actual wrestling side of WWE. They have their own WWE Studio staff and president of that, and obviously the writers aren't the same ones that they're using for writing WWE television. So it's basically just a completely separate entity within WWE. So I think it's completely fine, because it's basically it's just a separate company, and it's nothing to do with the wrestling. So I don't think that I don't think there's any conflicts there. And of course, storylines could be improved within the WWE, but I don't think the fact that WWE Studios exists is actually having any impact on that whatsoever. In terms of the films, I've enjoyed a couple of them. I haven't seen them all, but I think that over the last year there's been a new initiative with WWE Studios, and they've actually, I think they're being very smart about what they're doing now, investing in much bigger projects, and their strategy now and for the home entertainment market and things like that is much smarter than it was before. So I think they're going the right way with WWE Studios at the moment, and I do, I'm fine with it existing alongside WWE in the wrestling capacity.
And I'm inclined to slightly disagree there with counterpoints there. I mean, with the, a few years ago, it was a big thing, and they said that when these people that write the storylines, such as Vince Russo, they called them sort of Hollywood writers, and they said that there was no place for them in the world of wrestling. And a few years ago, that was absolutely, I totally agree with that. But nowadays, where wrestling is no longer considered really a sport, it's also not. It's considered by WWE as not really wrestling anymore. They want to keep it as entertainment. Well, if they want to keep it as entertainment and have it more like a show rather than a wrestling contest, which is fine, it's their show, they do what they want to do with it. But if that's the case, then maybe they should have some of these Hollywood writers writing some of the stories, because quite frankly, it's boring at the moment. There's not many decent storylines happening. It's very predictable. If they want to make it this big entertainment spectacle that they keep calling it, then maybe they should hire some of these writers from their studios instead of writing these films. I mean, the thing is, people have got to remember is that wrestling is wrestling. Now, whether it's changed from 1950s and it's changed from the smoky arenas and it's now this huge spectacle and the massive arenas on telly, and you can always put it on, there's always some sort of wrestling on the telly, but at the end of the day, people still watch it because it's wrestling. It's people taking bumps. It's not necessarily the storyline stuff, but it's people taking bumps, and just the art of it, the art of professional wrestling, and all the bits that come with it, all the trimmings. It's still wrestling. I don't believe that the average wrestling fan, certainly from anyone over sort of the age of 10, really gives a damn about what movie WWE is making, whether there's a new Marine film out, or Knucklehead, or The Chaperone, just because it's got a wrestler starring in it. I don't think a real wrestling fan gives a damn about it. All they want to do is switch on their TV on a Monday night for 3 hours, or a Thursday night for a couple of hours, and be entertained. And this goes back to the thing when people say, "Oh, wrestling, people, it's fake, and it's not really a sport." People don't give a damn. When I used to watch wrestling, regardless of whether I knew it was all, the storylines were all choreographed and the matches, obviously the action was obviously always very real, but the storyline, etc., the Undertaker being a dead man, not, a real dead man back, years ago, I didn't care about that, because for the 2 hours I was watching that show, I was absorbed in the show and I was living the show. I didn't care that, what wasn't real, what was real, and what happened. It was engrossing. I couldn't give a monkeys about a new film coming out with The Miz in it, or John Cena starring a film, or The Rock's films. And I don't think the real wrestling fan is bothered by that. Why the wrestling company has gone into movies, I can't understand. Apart from making money, the money side of it, but that should be money they're putting back into the wrestling. Wrestling now seems to have taken a sort of a sidestep to them knocking these, poor movies out. I can't understand it personally, but that's my opinion. With the ratings, getting lower and lower, the house show attendance is dropping. WWE should start remembering the first word, that is associated with their company, which is wrestling.
Now, on to this week's competition, but before that, the previous episode's competition, the prize of which was a copy of the new 10th anniversary collector's edition of Bret Hart, or Hitman Hart as it's called, Wrestling with Shadows. The documentary, which also comes as a bonus, comes with the documentary The Life and Death of Owen Hart. Now, the question for a copy of that was, Bret Hart made his professional wrestling debut for which promotion? And the answers were A, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, B, Stampede Wrestling, or C, World Class Championship Wrestling. And the answer, of course, was B, Stampede Wrestling. And the winner of Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows is Mark Godden. So congratulations to Mark Godden. We'll be getting in touch with you very shortly. Another DVD is up for grabs this week, and it is one of the first releases from Fremantle Media, which, of course, is WWE's new home entertainment distributor in the UK and Europe, and the Middle East, I believe, as well. And we're going to give away a copy of The Attitude Era. Now, I had the opportunity to sit down with this last week, and of course, I know this release has been out in the States for quite a while now, and obviously because of WWE's new relationship with Fremantle Media, Obviously, there was the delay there, but it is now out on DVD and Blu-ray. And I sat down with the Blu-ray copy, and basically, minus the features, it's a 60-minute documentary looking at the Attitude Era, which is what many people refer to as the best era in wrestling history, or at least WWE history. Now, this is a 60-minute documentary, and the Attitude Era spanned quite a few years and had many, 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 many memorable moments and characters and storylines. But this documentary, as I said, is only an hour long, and I think it's very, very short. I mean, you look at some of these superstar retrospectives, and they're, 90 minutes to 2 hours long. So why is a documentary about the Attitude Era, which spans several years, so short? Many storylines and characters are simply skipped over. Many aren't even mentioned. There are many memorable moments, which, you always see WWE showing when they refer to the Attitude Era, but they aren't even on this DVD, which is a shame. And I think this easily could have been a 2-hour documentary. It just seems like so much material has been skipped over in this release, and it's a shame. But nevertheless, for 60 minutes, it's still a very enjoyable documentary. I just wish they could have expanded upon many of the moments that they highlight in the documentary. Nevertheless, a copy is up for grabs. It's still a very enjoyable release. And this week's question, relating to the fact that there is a brand new WWE title, relates to the WWE Championship. And we would like to know, in which year did Stone Cold Steve Austin debut the Smoking Skull Championship belt? In which year did Stone Cold Steve Austin debut the Smoking Skull WWE Championship belt? Was it A, 1998, B, 1997, or C, 1999? Just send your answer to mailbag@yahoo.com, or you can indeed send us a private message on Facebook. Just search for the Hot Tag Podcast on Facebook, join our Facebook group, and get in touch with us there. And we will announce the winner on the next episode of the Hot Tag, which will be on Sunday, the 3rd of March.
Okay, thanks very much for listening, and apologies again for the delay in this week's show. Again, please send your news, views, and questions to us at
hottagmailbag@yahoo.com.
Also, find us on Facebook. Just type in the Hot Tag Podcast. Post your questions on the page there, or you can private message us your competition answers. Again, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening.